Hello students, welcome to the next video tutorial on Geometer Sketchpad. So I've just completed Geometer Sketchpad tutorial 1 and you have shown Mr. Ueda your completed tutorial. So this is completed, it's already been saved. So I'd never want you to close Geometer Sketchpad because it takes a long time for that program to load up again. So if we want a new sketch, we're going to go to File and we're going to choose the first option, New Sketch. Okay, we're going to start very similarly to how we did in tutorial 1. So I'd like you to create a text box and we're going to create a title. So I clicked on the A button and we're going to click and drag across and then we're going to type in tutorial number 2. Now it's still italics because it remembers what I set the last text box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to go down to italics and turn it off. I want it underlined and I want it bolded. Let's click on the arrow tool. We always switch back to the arrow tool and I want you to drag that text box to the top center of your screen. Okay, let's click on the text box again and create another text box underneath the main title. And again, we're going to type in by first name, last name, class. And then we're going to highlight everything you've typed. And we're going to go down to the text box down here, the text tools. And we're going to turn off the underline. We're going to turn on italics. And I'm going to reduce the font size. Then I want you to click on the arrow tool and slide your name and center it underneath the main title. Okay. Now, if you ever want to look back on tutorial 1, as long as you haven't closed it, it should be here in Window. So if you go to Window, and I can look back here, tutorial 1, did I set it up the same way? It looks like the same, doesn't it? And then I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to go back to that untitled assignment, which reminds me, let's go up and save it. File, Save As. Again, down the left-hand side, look for your student number, look for computer, click on the little triangle, and then I want you to type in tutorial 2, and then hit save. Okay, so let's draw something different from just lines this time. Let's go into angles. So we're going to use the straight edge tool, but what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Edit, and then we're going to do Preferences. Now, in the last tutorial, we set our distance to tenths. So if you clicked on this button last time, then it should already be tenths across the distance line. But for this assignment, we're going to focus on angles. Now, angles are always measured in degrees. We don't want to measure in radians, okay? So for the precision, though, we want to measure it to units. Units means ones column. So let's click on units. So let's make sure we have the right settings here. So the first one is units, the next one is tenths, and the last one doesn't really matter. So let's click on OK. All right. So let's use the line segment tool. Now, at any time, probably should have mentioned this in the first tutorial, if you make a mistake and then you want to redraw it or you want to erase it, there is no erase tool, but what you can do is you can click on the arrow tool, you can deselect, and you can click on the parts of your sketch that you don't want and then just hit the delete key. If you want to delete whole sections of a diagram, then you can use that trick, that technique I taught you in the first tutorial of dragging a box around everything so that everything is highlighted, and then you can just hit delete. Okay? So this is a very handy tip to know as we draw more and more complex sketches. We need to know how to erase things. Okay, so let's click on the straight edge tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw an acute angle. So we're going to start with one line segment, and then from the end of one line segment, we're going to draw another line segment. So hopefully you remember that that corner there where the two line segments meet is the vertex. This is very important, the vertex, that you know what the vertex is. These other points are called endpoints. This is an endpoint, this is an endpoint, this is a vertex. So let's go to measure this angle. So to measure angles, you have to remember an important rule. Okay, I'm just going to write it up here. It's called the EVE rule. It's called endpoint, vertex, endpoint. So this is going to be very important to know. Okay, I'm just going to leave it up here. So that means we're going to click on an endpoint first. It's very important that you don't click on the line segment. We're going to click on the endpoint and only the endpoint. The next thing is the vertex. So let's click on the vertex. Remember, the vertex is where the two line segments meet. And then the last one is we click on the last endpoint. Endpoint, vertex, endpoint. Let's go up to measure. And for this one, you'll notice that length is not available, only angle is. So let's click on angle. And let's move that angle measurement inside the mouth of that angle if you can. If you've drawn a very small acute angle, then it might not fit. Now the good thing is, see what I can do is I can grab one of the points and it will continue to measure this angle here. So what I'd like you to do just for practice is I'd like you to move that point so you are going to create an angle that is exactly 45 degrees. So I'm going to move my point and I'm going to stop when I get right on 45 degrees. Now if this angle measurement, the font is too big, you can go down here and change it. You can reduce it, right? So I've drawn an acute angle. An acute angle is less than 90 degrees. Okay, I'm going to switch back. I'm going to switch tools to the line segment tool. Now I'd like to create an obtuse angle. So I'm going to start with an endpoint and then click on the vertex and then start from the vertex and go outwards to the other endpoint. Now this looks like an obtuse angle. It looks like it's greater than 90 degrees. So let's switch tools. Let's go to measure it. We have to click on the arrow tool and let's deselect. Always remember to deselect. All right, let's use the endpoint, vertex, endpoint rule, the EVE rule. Let's click on the endpoint first. Then this is the vertex. Remember, the vertex is where the two line segments meet. And then let's click on the last endpoint. Notice that I didn't click on any of the line segments. Let's go up to measure and let's choose angle. I'm going to move that angle measurement into the mouth of this angle. Okay, so my original angle is 133 degrees. So what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to move one of your endpoints around so that you make an angle that is exactly 155 degrees obtuse. Okay, and there we go, 155 degrees right on. Okay, so let's go to the next family of angles, the right angle. Okay, so there is a trick, a simple trick to draw the right angle. Let's switch tools to the straight edge tool. All right, so this is what you have to remember about drawing a right angle. You draw one horizontal line by holding the shift key. Remember what holding the shift key does from tutorial 1? It helps us draw a perfectly horizontal line. Remember, horizontal goes left to right. Then the next part of the secret is at the vertex, hold the shift key and draw a line either straight vertical up or straight vertical down. So I'm going to choose to draw it vertically downwards. If I hold the shift key, then automatically, absolutely guaranteed, this angle is going to be what we want for the measurement. All right, so let's switch tools to the arrow tool and let's deselect. You have to deselect. Let's use the EVE rule, endpoint, vertex, endpoint. Let's click on the endpoint. Let's click on the vertex here where the two line segments meet, and then the last endpoint. Let's go up to measure, and the moment of truth, let's make sure that it comes out to the right measurement. Click on angle, and yes, that is the measurement we want for a right angle. It has to be exactly 90 or 90.0 or 90.00 or 90.000. In this case, we've got it perfect at 90 degrees. Okay, so the last family of angles is called the straight angle. So there is a trick, there is a secret to drawing a straight angle. It's a very simple trick. So what we're going to do is we're going to just start with an extra long line segment. Okay, so when I draw this, this alone is not an angle. Remember, every angle has to have an endpoint, a vertex, and an endpoint. Right now, I have an endpoint and I have an endpoint. So I'm missing something here in the middle. Well, there's a tool along the toolbar that we haven't really introduced yet, but it's pretty obvious what it's going to do. It's called the point tool. So let's click on the point tool and then drag it over, and then somewhere near the center of your line segment, place your vertex. Now we have the 3 points we need. We have the endpoint, we have the vertex, and we have the endpoint. Let's change tools. Let's click on the arrow tool. Let's deselect. Always deselect first before you measure anything. We're going to use the endpoint, vertex, endpoint, the EVE rule. Let's click on endpoint, vertex, endpoint, and then let's go up to measure, and let's choose angle once more. And if you remember your angle families, you know that a straight angle should always be exactly 180 degrees, exactly. Okay, so let's color code these angles. So what we're going to do is, I'm still on the arrow tool. There's two ways to color. I can click on these two lines here, or I can just highlight the whole diagram and it will color everything that's part of that diagram. I can go to display, I can go to color, and I can choose a different color. So I'm going to choose orange. You can choose any color you like. You can also see from display that you have line style. Please try to always draw in a medium or a thick line. It just shows up more. Okay, and usually we want to draw in a solid line. So that's under line style here. Okay, it's right above color. Okay, so if I deselect, you can see that this acute angle is now in orange. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my obtuse angle. I'm going to try to be very careful and highlighting only my obtuse angle. Now that I've got everything highlighted, see, I can move that whole picture around, that whole sketch around. All right, let's go to display. Let's go to color and choose a different color. Okay, I'm going to choose green. I'm going to do the same for the right angle. Again, use good mouse control, only highlight part of the right angle there. I'm going to go up to display, I'm going to go to color, and I'm going to choose a different color. And then finally, because this angle is so long, I might have trouble highlighting this. Well, let's see. Let's see what happens here. So I've highlighted all of my sketch except for the last dot. So what I can do is I can just manually click on that last dot. Now I've got the entire sketch highlighted. I'm going to go to display, I'm going to go to color, and I'm going to choose one more color I haven't used yet, and I'm going to use blue. Okay, now you could have chosen different colors for all of these families. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to create a label underneath each angle. So we're going to go back to the text tool. I'm going to click on the text tool, which we know how to use. I'm going to create a text box underneath, and I'm going to type in acute angle. So please make sure that you type in the word angle and not the word angel. I'm going to take off the italics. I'm going to keep it bold, and I increase the font a little bit. Now once you type that in, you can change tools to the arrow tool, and then you can position that label either above or below. I'm going to keep it neat because I've got a lot of room underneath, so I'm going to keep it below. I'm going to do the same for the next family. I'm going to create a text box, and I'm going to type in obtuse angle. I'm going to switch tools, and I'm going to place that label right underneath the obtuse angle. I'm going to create my third label here, and that is right angle. I'm going to switch tools to the arrow tool, and I'm going to make sure that label appears right underneath the right angle. And I'm going to click on the text tool one more time and create the last label for straight angle. Make sure you spell straight correctly. And I'm going to click on the arrow tool, and I'm going to place that angle right underneath. So I've placed all of my my labels kind of in a straight line. It just looks neater that way. And there we go. So now you know how to draw the 4 main families of angles. So let's go to File, and let's save this sketch. All right, now you've completed tutorial 2. Please call Mr. Ueda so he can just check over your tutorial. Thanks for watching. Bye.